Hi everyone, it's Embedded Vegan Community Outreach Activism. People talking about activism and the forms of activism that we do as vegans, and I've often critiqued that. And I've been trying to sort of work towards actually somehow coming up with something a bit new. So this is what I've sort of been experimenting with, and I'm interested to see what you think, and I'm also interested to see how it progresses. So for the last sort of couple of months, I've been joining other groups in the locality where I live, not connected with veganism, like a community garden, an activism group that is about improving your activism, and another one that is about dealing with sort of like traffic issues. And my thinking behind this is that by these are all things that I'm really interested in and committed to, as well as being vegan. And it occurred to me that by being a vegan in these predominantly as well as being vegan, and it occurred to me that by being a vegan in these predominantly non-vegan groups, it might open up some space in which to have the vegan conversations. Conversations it will be, not just one conversation. And just to sort of see how this has panned out. So, as I said, I joined the first group about a couple of months ago. And so I've got a bit of perspective now on how it's all been going. So the group that I'm going to be talking about today is the community garden group, because I've been there 3 times now. And the first one was just kind of looking at it and sort of gauging what was going on. The second one, we were able to sort of do some weeding and do some harvesting as well. And in the third one, I did some strawberry picking, which was great. And I picked so many strawberries that I thought, maybe I should do something like a nice vegan tart, a nice vegan flan, which I've never done before. And then basically I did so much that I thought, well, let's take it to the group and see what they see. So I introduced, obviously people are going to take a free homemade vegan custard tart. And I didn't really make anything of it. Subsequently, somebody else in the group was talking about, because of the community garden setting, it's near some allotments. And somebody mentioned that there were 6 baby goats in the nearby allotments, and they were part of this street goat project. And there was some chat in the group about what was going to happen with the goats. And so this woman said, well, the females will be milked. And there's a bloke sitting next to her. And he sort of said with this, I thought it was a rather horrible smirk, curry goat, like that. And I just thought, eek. Anyway, did I say something? No, because in that group dynamic, you just think, well, I don't want to jump down somebody's neck immediately about that sort of thing, Subsequently, I did have a chat with a couple of the other members of the group, and the curry goat bloke had left. And it was a kind of wide-ranging chat about veganism and animals and da-de-da-de-da. And I felt it was quite interesting, the levels of interest that were expressed. And it was just one conversation, and who knows what might happen. But it made me think about the perspective of this being the sort of embedded vegan in some sort of a community group, and having the conscious notion to go out there and actually veganize people and talk about animals and raise the profile of other animals and all those sort of issues that we know about, which are generally kind of like quite ignored. And it seemed to me that there could be quite a few reasons why this would work, because if people in a local community are actually getting together to do something, whether it's weeding, campaigning about traffic, or, community orchard, or anything really, they're maybe they're going to be slightly more open-minded to people talking about veganism. And another thing that struck me is that for myself, if I'm part of a group and I'm expecting to come back to that group, It's going to really make a difference in the way that I approach people, rather than say standing in the street corner, on a street corner, handing out flyers. And I thought, well, I think this could be quite interesting. Um, the other thing was that I'd had quite a few conversations with Ronnie Lee, and I'd also about local organising, and I'd also reading the book by Murray Bookchin about sort of social ecology and communities and growing communities, and it feels to me, in particularly in the context of catastrophic climate breakdown, that we really could all benefit, and COVID as well, we could really all benefit perhaps from sort of embedding ourselves in the community, which is not necessarily something that we maybe as vegans naturally feel embedded. And joining other groups is a way potentially of doing that. So I think also another reason that I wanted to do this was I'm very conscious of the whole sort of like the vegan bubble thing, the vegan echo chamber. And quite frankly, I am pretty fed up with it, to be honest. I find a lot of it, as other people do, quite unpleasant and quite toxic. I mean, it's one thing having sort of like sensible discussions with people about stuff. But when it gets to, you all know what I'm talking about, but when it, kind of gets into the sort of like really minutiae of, personal attacks, everybody is just constant, totally onto the vegan thing and not really sort of seeing that we live in a bigger world than that. Of course, as a vegan advocate, I'm totally committed to advocating for other animals as a number one priority. But I could just see that, with this going into other groups, you've kind of got a ready-made sort of like little audience of people. And it reminded me of the time that why I went vegan initially, what sparked my sort of like interest. And it was my yoga teacher in Penang who said one day, oh, I've got something to tell you. I was like, oh, what? And she's like, oh, I've gone plant-based. And then the husband said vegan. Anyway, so she sort of said, oh, well, you should think about it too. And then I looked online for a couple of weeks, did the research. And by the end of that time, I was actually vegan. And I was thinking, had that been some random person that was handing out flyers in the street or a more random conversation, would I have perhaps taken the second step to do that research? Perhaps not. So what was the difference? The difference was that the yoga teacher was somebody I liked, respected, and trusted. We already had an ongoing relationship of going to the yoga class and socializing a bit. And I thought, the more I've been thinking about this over the sort of COVID time and analysing other forms of activism and critiquing them and generally trying to sort of inform myself about how activism could potentially work, whilst at the same time, as I said, kind of getting out of that vegan bubble, that vegan space, which does feel kind of quite unproductive for me personally a lot of the time. So that is kind of where I am with it. And I'm going to be talking more about other conversations that I'm having, because obviously this is an ongoing sort of like experimental project with these different groups and with myself and with the whole sort of like veganizing experience. And yeah, I just thought it might be interesting for people to also think about this. Maybe this is something, maybe there's some groups that you want to join or a group that you want to join, and to consciously have thoughts about using that as a way of getting the vegan message, the animal rights, the animal liberation message out into a different and wider audience. And the other thing is that it's not just about having the individual conversations. Because also, if you're working in that group for some sort of activist group, it doesn't have to be activist, but I would say that would be my choice. If you're working for some kind of global change, whether it's activism or, gardening or, community orchard or whatever, it's got a wider context. So it doesn't mitigate against tackling these issues on a bigger basis. So that was my thinking, really. It seemed to be something that may be of some sort of interest, and I'll be doing another video kind of putting a bit more of my thoughts together about how I came up with the idea and what the different elements of it might be, and actually how it works and doesn't work, all that sort of stuff. But I'd love to hear your comments and your thoughts. Do you think it will work? Who knows if it works? How can one judge if it works? But I think it's kind of interesting to do it over time with similar people, because you've kind of got a bit of, you can sort of then get a sense, or I can get a sort of sense of where people are, potentially. And obviously, if suddenly, sort of like I go along to the community garden this afternoon, like everybody's like, yeah, we've all gone vegan. It'd be like, oh, yeah, job done. It wouldn't be. But anyway, so have a great weekend. Thank you for your time and your kind attention. Pamela from Animal Justice Emergency. Together, as you know, we can end the war on other animals. You take care.